On 3rd of September, in Nyeri, another team from the National Intelligence Service came to Nyeri and tried to poison food that was meant for me and Kikuyu Council of Elders. I did report this matter to the National Intelligence Service, and the officers who were assigned to my office, I asked them to leave because I felt I was not safe. After the 2 attempts to assassinate me through food poisoning failed, it is when this impeachment motion was hatched. When my security was withdrawn here, officers from the National Intelligence Service have been hovering in every room, in every compound here, to an extent that I had to call my wife and my children to come and stay in my room, just in case they get entry to my room or compromise the people who are treating me. So, regarding Gachagua and his family, feel very exposed because these people have tried to kill us before. They have now tried to get us out of office. So I asked President William Ruto, my brother, I helped you to be president. Leave me alone. Leave my children alone.
Very, very strong statements, gentlemen, and mostly so coming from, because he's still the deputy president, yes. Because the orders were given by the courts. Yeah. Coming from a deputy president, what came to your mind when you heard those words? Muregi?
Well, to start with, I must say it's a sad moment for all Kenyans when we witness the kind of differences that we're witnessing at the top there, knowing how much kind of support they command from, regionally and also countrywide. So it is a moment when you would expect utmost sobriety, but with what is actually transpiring, what we are witnessing, with what the deputy president is saying today, which is also triggered by what may have taken place in the National Assembly and the Senate, where Kenyans would have felt, most Kenyans would have felt like maybe the National Assembly had actually made a parody of themselves, and that against the, in the accusations they held against the deputy president, and of course, as a human being, your emotions, which you could have held for a very long time, based on certain convictions, like it's not proper to maybe unveil certain things that are happening until the enmity was quite ostensible. And this could have been seen through the process of the National Assembly, when you could hear some of them, just swearing. We are not just dealing with you out of office. We actually want to finish you. When you talk about finish and we begin to interpret the word finish, I'll begin to connect one and one. Now, having found myself in such a situation, I can explain that sometimes that's the time you begin to connect one and one. Even what I ignored as just a mere emotional outburst, now I realize actually you're in your good senses when you said what you said or did what you did. It wouldn't shock you when you heard all that transpired, and then remember there was a member of parliament who spoke in public, and I think it was in parliament, who said that by March next year there will be, the flags might be flying half-mast. It's a statement, but nobody followed up. No DCI, because you're supposed to be arrested and give a statement for that for that kind of a statement, because it means you know something, right? Because when you talk about half-mast, of course that's not my death. If I would pass, if I would be killed, it must be either of the president, a deputy president, a speaker, or and such.
Very prominent person.
Yes. And to the prerogative of the president, if he chooses, even if it's a cabinet minister, that it would fly half-mast. So when you put yourself now in the shoes of the one who made the declarations, before we judge him, let's see what exactly could have been running through his mind for the longest time, because the statements were not made yesterday, and the actions taken were not made yesterday also. Now, following whatever transpired even at the Senate, where even the National Assembly representative was supposed to, present their case, it's something that really put so many questions to Kenyans, whether this was really a serious thing that was going on, or it is something, is a stepping stone towards something. Is a stepping stone towards something. And I'm still putting you
to the impeachment, because we will get to
I'm not discussing impeachment.
Yes,
I'm discussing what could be running through the mind of a person listening there and is wondering, what are you guys asking? I mean, what's all this fuss about?
He's literally,
while seated on the other side, remember?
Yes, he's literally, George, accusing the president of attempting, when he says NIS, you read the president. He's accusing the head of state of attempting to kill him twice.
Absolutely.
It's not a statement that we can brush away, brush off.
Fred, in any country in the world where we have what you call identity politics, which is something that even the greatest republic on earth, as they call it, the US, cannot even ignore it, because even in the US we still have identity politics, and that's why you can easily tell that.
You're saying identity politics
where leaders have a representation of who they stand for, and that's why, even the US, just quickly, I'm giving as an example, you have the Democrats, and you easily can tell about the blacks and the Latinos and all those people that are from that particular coalition. And Kenya not being an exception, then we come from a political culture where somebody like the deputy president of a republic is a representation of a bunch of people that probably hold him dear more than what we can imagine. And for any intelligence service to be able to sit and watch what happened yesterday, that a sitting deputy president is openly, not even alluding, and we cannot call it allegation. He's saying direct. He's saying this president has tried to kill me, and please now they want to kill my family. That even the president had, they were saying they even had the NIS in the hospital, calling to find out if he's dead yet. You can imagine. And
where did you get that one from? He didn't say NSIS was calling. He said there are people who are calling. His people. Who are his people? His people, not the NSIS, my friend. We should be very clear with this.
That whole statement, that whole presser was about NIS. If you just listen to every step that he said, from Kisumu to Nyeri, you cannot even single out and say this is
in your definition as you continue. Who are the people?
In
your definition,
there are two characters being pointed in that presser, Fred. The deputy president has mentioned the president directly, and his people, and the NIS. That is very clear. I don't think even we should debate about that. It's very clear what the deputy president was saying, but I think we are really underestimating the magnanimity of such an accusation. In a country, Fred, where people used to say, no Raila, no peace, and went into an ethnic violence. Remember that?
Yes.
It's because Raila Odinga represented a section of Kenyans that were holding his opinion. Rigathi Gachagua, based on the culture of our politics, represents a bunch of people. And they wouldn't want to see what we saw yesterday. It's actually a national security issue, if you look at it, in countries where security issues are taken seriously. Fred, the reason why we had the Rwanda genocide is because not that Rwanda was not a country. Rwanda was a country. It had a cabinet and all these departments that any government has. But they kept on overlooking certain smaller issues, and they built up over time. And when then the anger when the anger now was at its peak, we went into what we had, that in 100 days, 1 million people had to die. Can you imagine 1 million people? We only talk of 1,000 here in Kenya. 1 million people is such a big number. We wouldn't want to have a country where we can even begin to take such a trajectory, because that you have institutions that either are perceived not to be working or are working in favor of somebody else, and therefore are not considered to be fair, and then you have them collapse. Because one of the reasons why even the fallout of 2007 was that the ODM party said they did not believe the judiciary then headed by the late Justice Gachagua, I forget the guy, that was the CJ. They said, we do not believe in that institution. It's not that it was not there. There was a CJ, Fred. So NIS is a state department that has very serious role in as far as the national security is concerned, because then they're able to pick the intelligence of the country. That's why the head of state receives, the first thing he does every day in the morning is to receive national intelligence from across the country. So the role that they play is very critical in the interest of the whole country. You do not want to be in a situation where an institution as critical as that one is being painted in the manner that we do now.
And this is not the first time the deputy president is firing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not saying, that's why I was just heading to now the second segment of my thoughts, is that it could be mere allegations from the deputy president, or it could be we have a rogue NIS. Those two are possible outcomes, isn't it? And so it is very sad for me to see what we saw yesterday, because then the risks, both political and social, are too enormous. Bearing in mind that the opponent that is now facing this deputy president and where they come from are historic opponents in the history of our politics. Fred, it is the mountain and the rift that has a history of having fought politically. Other people fight for other things. We fought over cattle, over land borders, but not politics. You understand? But in this country, on record, regions and communities that have fought over politics is where this president comes from and where this deputy president comes from.
So after such statements are made, what do you expect to come today? I mean, it will be foolhardy for the government not to make a statement.
Absolutely.
Because this is...
It's a serious allegation.
It's a serious allegation.
You know, Fred,
yes.
The seriousness of it is not because it's only one life that is affected, or 2 or 3 or 4.
Yes.
Every life matters.
True. But when the deputy president says...
When I talk about every life matters,
yes,
the fact that you've been elected a deputy president, a CS, does not change you from who you have been. You still remain the same person who has his status changed, but you still remain the same human being with all weaknesses and all attributes of what comprises or what makes up a human being. That's what you are. Because tomorrow you may not be what you are. So the what you are is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the who. And the country itself, with the constitution that we have, is about the who. The who includes even the person who has mental instability in Mathare Hospital or any other place. That person whom you may think that is not contributing a lot to whatever the coffers and everything, and to whatever pleases me, matters of development and anything, even that one, equated to a president of the Republic of Kenya, in terms of humanity, they are equal. I'm getting to this point.
Let me get your school of thought. Are you trying to say that this statement that was made yesterday is not so key by virtue of the person who made it?
Yes. One.
Statement that was made by the deputy president.
The statement that was made by the deputy president is explaining the possibilities of anything happening to him or any other person. It happens every day to every other Kenyan.
It's not any other person.
Brother,
yes.
Please. I don't want to adapt your perspective, the way you view or perceive people. You know, there are people who salute and lick the shoes, and without using the ordinary polish, you just lick with the tongue and say, "Hiyo vumbi yote nitakula," because you pay my fees, you pay my food, you pay my everything. You get the point?
Yeah.
There are people who don't do that.
Okay.
We don't lick such. So what we're trying to say is, we're humans. And don't rule out a possibility because you have a historical trend. We have seen these things happen. You know, gone are days when we could hear that so and so there was an involvement of a certain, group from the intelligence or from the criminal investigation department then, or the special branch those days, all these kind of things. We used to hear them, and we could hear proceedings that used to come about and get this kind of information. What I'm trying to say is that it's not nothing new.
You're saying we should take it with a pinch of salt?
With a pinch of salt, because it could be possible these things can happen. However, I cannot stand here to say that it's this person who is to commit that or the other person. But I cannot rule out possibilities of such a thing taking place. I can't rule out the possibility because it is possible. Unless you have any better, one has any better explanation to explain that it can't give him that kind of assurance. You get the point? Because if in the same statement, I promised that, because I remember him also crying and wailing the same way, tafadhali usiue watoto wangu, usiguze watoto wangu. I know could be
who the president.
Now,
yes.
when he was DP, he was feeling the kind of pain. Remember, there were drones that were hovering over his house and not leaving, you know, not knowing whether it's a camera or an explosive, because it just came in Tita Nakio. I mean, those are the kind of fears sometimes you have, that what happens when I'm away and my children are in the house. You know, these are the kind of things. You sometimes quit being the deputy president and become a father, a husband. That's the reality of life. So what I'm trying to say is,
because should we? Are you saying that these statements are just statements?
They are not just statements.
Yeah. What should happen? Because
he has reported. He has reported once. Remember, he stated it.
Yes.
That he has reported to the relevant authorities. Any action he has given any report or record of any action that was taken thereafter?
No.
Hey. So that explains to you something, that just by exposing such a thing or mentioning such a thing, that is by reporting it to the relevant authorities, it means you've already exposed yourself.
You've already exposed
yourself. If they were to exercise whatever mandate has been given to them, then we would have had a follow-up. It's just the same. It's just the same way I'm asking you.
How are we supposed to see this? Because
look at it this way.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is not just any other Tom, Dick, and Harry. This is a person who is the second in command. If the president is not there today, he is the one who becomes the president.
I'm trying to request,
and he is saying, these guys tried to kill me twice.
I'm trying to request Mr. Njiri.
Yes.
1, 2 times.
Yes.
Half-mast. What is happening?
Yes.
Security taken away.
Yes.
What does it explain to you? What does it explain to you? Does it give you confidence?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. So when it reaches that point, what do you use? You can only use the stuff that is in your hand. It could be the loudest voice that you can make at the rooftop.
So that's the reason why he came out to say.
Absolutely. To whom does he run to? To whom would he run to? He can't run to the authorities. Forgive me. He can't run to the authorities. Authorities have proven not to act to the whims of the demands of the Constitution, because the Constitution demands that if anyone makes that kind of a claim or any form of accusation, then definitely take up the step and without bias, without prejudice, do the necessary that you're supposed to do with the powers mandated.
Should we expect,
according to you, rather,
the government? Okay, what should we expect? Interior CS Kithure Kindiki,
who is also an interested party in the position that he holds,
a
conflict of interest,
speak to say today.
As at now,
the government needs to speak. Am I right?
Yeah. As at now, before he continues, let him speak, knowing that if you would run to the Interior CS, who is already an appointee of the president, to replace the deputy president, as deputy president, definitely, what would you expect? Would you run to him? At the moment.
What do you expect?
You know, Fred, we need to look at this matter from the context of the institution of presidency.
Yes.
And that's why even world over, those characters that end up committing coups, for any coup to succeed, you must get the president. Because any other person, then government will continue. That's why we even
That's
had...
petty. That's petty.
I'm just saying.
That's a petty observation that has already...
I'm just saying, I'm alluding to the seriousness of the institution of presidency. And if to get to a level where we can have such an allegation from a member of the presidency, any country in the world is something that it should take seriously. I think we should. Not just the country, but the institutions that are given mandate to do that, Today, the Inspector General of Police ought to have given a statement of what was said yesterday. Because people that make, depending on who makes such a statement, the country and the peace and the tranquility of that country could be at stake. Fred, that's why I alluded to what happened in 2007. The statement of no Raila, no peace had serious consequences. Raila was just a member of parliament. He was not even a prime minister then, isn't it? Yeah. He was just a member of parliament. But based on who he was and the stature, which is what you were saying, that is not just Fred Ongaira saying it. He's the deputy president of the republic. And then now you have to look over and above now who has said. Because if Ngaira says it at the street there with our brother Alan, it's a random statement. What in law they told us is called an obiter statement. In criminal law. My wonderful teacher told me that statements that you can make in court that are not necessarily the subject matter but as a passing by. So the deputy president was meant making an obiter statement. It's on a live TV, making serious allegations. He's very specific. He's not just alluding. Kuna watu wanataka no, he's saying this department, they did ABCD, and he's very particular. By now, the Inspector General of Police will have done that. So I think when you look at it, maybe you as a journalist, you need to take us back to the context. Because if you had the question you had asked and said, then Ngaira, what is the significance of what the deputy president said? Then we'll answer this question properly so that Mreithi doesn't have to take us through the stories he has taken us. He has just asked us, what is the implication of that? And I'm telling you that knowing how serious the institution of presidency is, and knowing who Rigathi Gachagua is, and in this case the deputy president of this country, and knowing the social implication of what happens if indeed he represents a big chunk of people that share his sentiments, and the images of what such an image shows to somebody, me and my people in Kakamega could care less about this picture. Yes. But what about that guy in Madira, in his village called what? Wamunyoro? And he sees it. Our reactions will be completely different. It will be completely ignorant for us to assume that that villager in Kakamega and that villager in Madira share the same perspective of what happens in this. You must be very clear and honest to yourself and say, then the implication of this could be very serious. How do we contain it in record time? Because it's not news in this country that political fallouts have led to lives being lost. True or false? It's true. And so when you have a leader of that magnitude making such statement, and is a political leader, it's not a business leader who is talking about a small corporation. No, it's somebody that can get people on thicker road and come straight into parliament to cause chaos. That has happened. There's allegations that we've had about mobilization of the Gen Z. We saw, assuming it is true they were bought, it means then indeed there are people that have capacity to actually cause such chaos, and that is instability to the country. So I think for us, and for the benefit of my brother and ourselves, is that then give us the context of the discussion we're having here. Because for me, what even triggered me yesterday, and that's why it is that implication. The magnitude, it's too big. It is. It's too big. It's too big. Because somebody else, it could even be, for example, it could even be just false allegation from the deputy president. Yes. And then somebody else on the streets just stand up and hurts the deputy president. What happens? I have come and said, Fred wants to kill me. Then Alan is a third party. Yes. And then from somewhere on the streets, he waits for me on the corridor. Yes. And then actually kills me. Yes. Not you. But I've already said it's you. So any person that is in charge of such a process needs to take this case very faster so that other joyriders, assuming even it's a lie, that is just some mere allegations of the deputy president. So the magnanimity, the seriousness of that accusation is what I'm on. And who has said it, and the political implication of it in this country is just too big.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Thank you for explaining it in too many words that the relevant authorities ought to have taken steps.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
The DCI would have made a statement. By now, the National Police and
the director of the NIS.
The director of NIS, because
say that
it is the interior CS would have also had something to say. So why I'm saying that it's being trivialized, and then after it happens we say nalikuwa nasema. You know, these are the kind of things when you ignore such calls, it's very serious. I would also like to request my brother. I don't want to dwell on rigmaroles. I dwell on facts. When he calls upon the Gen Z issue into this discussion, and the Gen Zs were being funded by Ford Foundation I'm not the one who said it. It's the president. Please, not me.
Yeah.
It's the president.
It's okay.
I'm not the one who said that Uhuru Kenyatta was involved.
Yeah.
Was the president.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about the office, I'm just mentioning what would have come from such powerful quarters.
Yep.
And the same president spoke about the deputy president as being involved. So what happened when he went to the US? We saw that the Ford Foundation were good people who have been doing great things and brought about development and many other things. It means with them they had to come to a truce.
Yeah.
Okay? So the elimination method, we have the Ford Foundation out. We had Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta out of it. So when you talk about Rigathi Gachagua being there, it's only because you're carried by the rage and the animosity that the parliamentarians have been peddling all along, in public and in the house. You get the point? And then the media house that had not been very well informed on how to handle certain matters for the purpose of the integrity of a country, to hold it together, because the media plays an integral part. Even what we are saying right now is very serious. Don't think that we're just talking to EBN. It's not a church service. This is the whole nation, to whoever is tuned in and anyone outside this country listening. We have to be very, very factual with what we say. Because you see, if I go by the emotions of what the media had by yesterday, they were still, the day before yesterday, all media was referring to the deputy president, yet the conservatory orders were removed. But because of ignorance, they were still calling him the impeached deputy president. It means they didn't even understand it. They didn't consult. But I know they must have gotten warnings from their legal department. Hey guys, you must understand that this is their status. You get the point? And while they were saying this, down there in the village, the so-called people you're calling villagers, were having this argument from the context of, hey, the deputy president does not exist. Okay? So what you're trying to say is, as a country right now, as we stand, this is a deputy president who does not enjoy or have the privileges of which are accorded to the deputy president. Immediately the conservatory orders were given. If we are not living in impunity, we would have ordered, relevant authorities would have ordered the security officers to go back, and those who would have entered the current house to also restore, and anyone who was working under the deputy president's office until the matter is settled. But if that does not happen, it shall explain one thing, impunity. It shall explain one thing, abuse of office, later on. And you see, the immunity of the president from being accused, from anyone instituting a case against the president. And remember, any other person who carries out the functions of the president. That's the Constitution, Article 143. It means who else carries out the other function? I mean, the other person who carries out the functions of the president
is the deputy.
Is the deputy president. So he's protected with that kind of immunity from either civil or criminal law accusations. What I'm trying to say is that those privileges, he is supposed to enjoy them as long as the status quo has been declared by the implementers of the law, the courts. So when they made that decree, it meant that the status quo remains, not as per where you have found it, because when you go out there in the streets, they are saying, alikuwa impeachwa so hiyo hairudiwi nyuma. No, the conservatory orders, according to the research, and I believe he studied law or something, the conservatory orders is actually the strongest order that a court can issue that would restrain continuity of anything. Now, the conservatory order is an all-rounder scope because it does not only look at what has been presented in the petitions alone, but anything else that will be called up by the petitions or that will build towards what has been petitioned or presented as a plea. It means even what went on at the National Assembly becomes an interest of the court. It has to reach out to this. For the interest of justice.
I get where you're going with this. The conservatory orders restored the position, the status quo before the impeachment.
And I was just trying to expose the ignorance of the people we depend upon sometimes, the journalists who write these kind of things without having the correct information and correct understanding of what should be the explanation. But you can imagine how much damage they cause when you go now to social media, in those small platforms, and hear what people have to say, you'll be shocked.
So I still want to take us back to that statement.
Yes.
Because that statement, irrespective of what we think, that statement is the most damning statement that can be made towards a sitting president.
Very true.
You literally saying, your deputy is telling the public, he wants to kill me. He's attempted to kill me twice. And at the time he's saying, all his security has been withdrawn. So I expect probably either the president or the institutions involved to come out and say, whatever he said is a lot of hogwash.
Let me explain.
Let him first.
I wanted to give an analogy of Jesus Christ, let alone regarding Gachagua doubting his president or his boss. Even Christ doubted his father while on the cross, when everything else was taken away, because he felt there was no protection, you know. And that's why he said, why have you forsaken me? Because what I'm going through down here, my friend, I don't have anyone to protect me or even advocate for me. So it's the same thing. When it reaches a point where you have to see things like yourself,
yes,
that is where the DP is at the moment.
You know, Fred, you've asked a question and it's very clear. Me, I've heard you. And I've heard you because, maybe because I sat in a prosecution class. It was a very specific question. That, Ngaira, what is the significance of this statement? And what are the consequences, potentially, if not well handled? You see, those are the two answers I'm supposed to give you. And I've told you that a deputy head of state making such a serious allegation anywhere in the world is a very serious issue. Two, that whoever is making that is not just a church guy or a guy on the street, is a politician with a representation. Yeah. And in a country where we've come from, a history where we know that even a random MP can make a statement of no Raila, no peace, and the country goes into flames. That's a history that we know. And therefore, a deputy head of a country could even mean more implications, you understand? And the context of who the opponents are, which is the deputy president and the president, they come also from a region where they've had political grievances over time. So anybody in this country that loves the country and wants to see us stay in order, because I'm a small business owner, I'm a businessman. And any time in this country, in town, there is chaos, Fred. It has an implication on me, regardless of who I support politically. That's why even from when this president won this election, Fred, and we were with you on that year, I told you, even though I do not support this regime, but as a citizen of Kenya, the first order of business to wish this government to do well, because I also live in this country, isn't it? Yes. And if things were to break hell, it's not just the opponents who will lose. All of us will lose. So the answer was supposed to be very clear. The significance of this, the significance of these statements, I've said, are big. The consequences could be detrimental. The institutions that are supposed to work on this particular case by now should be on top of things. They should have even answered the deputy president yesterday. Because, Fred, we might sit, me and Brady and you here and discuss this matter from a superficial point of view. But that regular guy on the street, in Wamunyoro, as we say, what he perceives Gachagua might not be what me and Brady perceive. Us maybe will just see this is politics. And I can even say he's a pretender. Or Mredi can say he's a pretender. But for a person in the village there, sitting and hearing his leader that he loves so much say, not only have I been betrayed, but they want to end my life. It's a very serious thing, isn't it? And so for me, is that the institutions that have an opportunity to be able to handle this, including the president, there's a reason why the presidency is very guarded. The president is actually allocated 100 police officers. Those are 5 police stations. That is either security, leave alone the guards that you have for, state house and police regional commanders, the ones that sometimes aid whenever a president is in an area. I'm talking about the ones that actually work with him. 5 police stations. Because of how important that person is. Because you can kill anybody else across the country and the country moves on. Never mind this bad thing that we can lose life over such reckless circumstances. But the president, if he dies, the country could go to chaos because it takes us to politics. So you wouldn't want to have anybody within the institution of the presidency to make such wild allegations without instantly addressing them. As we speak today, there's not even one single statement from the Inspector General of Police, neither do we have such a statement from the NIS or any other institution or even the presidency itself to repulse such an accusation and say that is not true. I think we are playing with fire as a country. We are playing with fire. This president is playing with fire because it might be because he's a politician, and I agree, it might be even false allegation. But even if it's false allegation, there's some level of responsibility then as a leader that then you're supposed to come in and be able to do so that you can be able to slow down.
The nerves,
yeah, because the way people take issues, I could cook a lie, and I'm told this, I'm even agreeing with it. It can even be a lie that all these allegations of poisoning. But there's an audience that Deputy President Gachagua is speaking to. You understand? A very, very passionate audience. And if there's anybody that has analyzed the last few weeks, would tell you it's getting very emotional. He's getting that emotional support that even this president benefited from. Remember, the statements that this president, deputy president, is saying are not new. This president too said it in the previous regime. And we made a very gross, what I was saying off air before we got in, I was telling you, we made a very serious blunder for those of us who were against the president, because we assumed with having President Uhuru Kenyatta, being that he's from the mountain, and almost all the elected leaders, including the governors, were all of the president's train, we knew that we would be able to still sweep a big chunk of Central. It didn't work, because we didn't factor in what the regular guy on the ground was saying. We were superficial. We were sitting here and say, you know, this is deep state, and you know, we have the governors. It was a random statement, which can be made by me or Mreithi. But the villager in Gashororo village, somewhere in Ruiru Thika there, that is sitting and probably is a passionate supporter of this deputy president, might not take it kindly what we are seeing on the headline today. And that is what I'm alluding to. Because then it can have very serious political consequences
if not handled well.
You see, we are agreeing that the head of state and relevant authorities should have spoken by now.
Yes, true.
Even getting things to where we are of impeaching the president, maybe they're trying to test put the constitution to test, which is happening at the wrong time. Maybe would have waited at the 4th, 5th year, 7th year, and maybe exercised that thing. By that time, we'd have built evidence. Secondly, I would like also to advise Mr. Ngaira, before Google came, we used to run to the lawyers for legal advice before we even advise ourselves. Even the medical suffers the same problem they suffer, that they're dealing with a very informed society at the moment. That before I even come to you, I know that I'm supposed to get some antibiotics and this kind of a thing will work. This one works adversely negative. Would work adversely against my, my anatomy. And this.
So you're saying the villager is informed.
The villager is so informed. Gone are days when we were waiting for KBC and wait for that presenter to come and tell us what has been told to him by PPU. Today, we're getting it firsthand. Yesterday,
what impact did that statement have on the villagers, the deputy president?
What I mean without exercising any form of condescending attitude or contemptuous attitude of the people we regard as lowly. The villager. That village I'm saying. I don't want us to give them another name. They will prove for themselves with time that they know what they're talking about. These people, whatever is spoken in that deep legalistic language is actually interpreted in their mother tongue. So they have an idea, and that includes the grandmother, the grandfather, the young boy who has not even understood much is able to understand from the language that he is spoken to. So what I'm trying to say is informed.
What I'm trying to get, what impact did that statement have on the people on the ground, whether we call them villagers or from his backyard?
Yes, from his backyard.
Yes.
The love for Rigathi Gachagua, I can tell you, is backed on several things. There are promises that were made by the president that if I get elected, this is what we will do. And Rigathi Gachagua would echo the same thing and say, I know him, I trust him. So what was left for the people is to trust their guy because he trusts him. You understand? If he said that we will revive KCC and pump money into it and make KCC a viable conduit of making wealth, like for instance, you guys, we want to fight for guaranteed minimum returns, which means long even before your milk has been sold, you are able to obtain your payments at the rates that we have promised. We would like milk to be bought at 50 shillings. It's not for the people.
So when they had, what I want to get from you, when they hear,
I'm just trying to show you,
leader
wants to be killed,
saying that these guys want to kill me.
What is the because of that?
You see what lawyers do. They put to you so that you say it in brief, yes or no. We don't do it like that in this other world. What we do is explain why you want to know what would be the reaction of these people. I'm giving you reasons why they would feel offended and pained when the guy they trusted is suffering. One, milk is being purchased in Mount Kenya and elsewhere to anyone who sells his milk to KCC at 50 shillings. One who has tea, even in his home area, Vihiga and Kakamega, Mount Kenya, Kericho, if you had actually plucked the correct grade and presented it for sale, then you're getting better rates. Remember, the last regime, the highest they could get was actually 34, the best that was paid to the best factory. But
for milk or tea.
For tea, okay? Today, I think it's around 46 and the highest is 62. You know? That's a plus. Now, remember, the guaranteed minimum return bill is still sitting somewhere in Parliament, having been presented in March. So even with that notwithstanding, they have received better pay. When you talk to such people, they could see some light through this guy. Coffee guys are getting 80 shillings, 100 shillings, 70 shillings, you know. And I'm trying to say, these are people who are being paid 34 shillings. 1 year, 2 years ago. Today, they can actually add that to his credit. Now, when this person is hurt, and he's almost becoming their protection, their defense, their advocate, these people will definitely feel offended. So they are not just moved like the ones who are told, like those who say, if my Baba tells me to kick out my wife, I'll kick out my wife out of no reason because Baba has said. This is not the kind of emotions I'm talking about. I'm talking about informed emotions. You know, so what is happening right now, the Mount Kenya people are feeling offended because they also trusted him based on what they had agreed. So when again you turn around so soon, definitely they would feel cheated. And that is why I'm saying the weight of the statement that he made yesterday is not only appalling to the people of Mount Kenya, but to the general public of the Republic of Kenya.
You know, I can't
people say for him, but others, because
I can't believe Mehdi has taken that long to just arrive at an answer that we needed 10 minutes ago.
Sometimes he's always good to allow you to see the sketch.
The question, he has arrived to what he was saying. That is a serious, the significance of that statement is very serious.
Even earlier.
And you've taken 20 minutes to say that.
No. Just to make you understand, or any other person who may not see it from that perspective.
Being, and I think also maybe he's been actively in politics. Being in politics actively and having seen outcomes not going the way we planned as an interested party, usually is a bit different from someone who's just at home waiting to vote, because you invest everything in that race. Your mind and your effort. And we've been there probably the last 4 elections, but the last 2 are the ones that have actively seen the logistics of it. Fred, if you do not go into the mind of that voter or that mwananchi or the villager as we're putting it, you might then lose the target of what you're looking for, because you grossly underestimate how he makes his decisions. That's why we have professors who are sycophants of Raila Odinga. Professors, educated, informed, they go to Ivy League schools, because the thought process of how he makes that decision is not what he does when he's at home and minding his family or his business. You understand? There's some emotions to it. And the same thing applies everywhere. That's why Waititu became governor of Kiambu. And they were telling us they are doing is to teach Kafogo a lesson. Not that he was the best manager, he had the best business ideas of how he's going to create jobs for the young people in Kiambu. That was not the debate.
Yes. If
that was the debate, Waititu would not be governor of Kiambu. So it tells you how that voter thinks. And me, I know because of the emotional adrenaline that goes into play at that time when you're making that decision. An image like this one of Pastor Dorcas crying would send even a highly educated Ivy League trained professor in Nyeri to think otherwise. Never mind Gachagua, his conduct, we all agree, has been questionable over time as a national leader. That is a debate that is, in fact, it's not even a debate. We all agree for a long time that once you become a deputy president of a republic, you then have to expand your scope and address the country on many times. That hasn't been the case. So that is not the case. Now we are looking at the political reality of now what has happened.
Yes.
Is that then, who does he represent? What is their opinion on what is happening? And what are the potential consequences of the anger and the emotional charge that is rising over what is happening? Those are the issues now we need to talk to.
You see, like the other thing he mentioned yesterday,
yes,
which was very critical and interesting, apart from his security and his staff being, sent packing, and that will cost. I believe that will cost the government a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because the staff being sent home on compulsory leave is contrary to the orders that were given.
Yeah.
Because the orders are supposed to ensure that everything
status
quo is maintained.
As it were.
Yes, as it were.
Not that as it is, but
yes.
as it were.
If somebody went to court, that would cost the taxpayer, because the government basically gets its money from us, a lot of money.
Fred, the process of dismissing a public servant is very clear as per the Public Service Act and how that is being handled by the head of Public Service Commission, especially employees even at that level of employment, the job group. I think they call it T&U. It's a very high level grade. And so I don't know who advises this government. I told you we were, 2 weeks ago, we were somewhere and we were with Bishop Sapit and we were just looking at this case, and he was telling me that the political mistakes that this president seems to be making are either being done knowing that he has an alternative way of winning the next election, being that he's a politician, because as far as the masses are concerned, if you factor in, first of all, the real challenges that Kenyans are going through, there are people who are not impressed with what this government has done in terms of performance.
Yes.
That is one group. There's another group of young people that had a personal issue with this president and the outcomes of what happened with the Gen Z. That's another set. There is now regarding Gachagua and those who are feeling betrayed. And we don't know what the percentage is. The president got 3.4 million votes from the mountain. We don't know whether it's the 50% of it of 2 million. That will be figured out later. But there will be a section who, based on that, they don't even care about Gen Z, they don't care cost of living. They're just saying, you betrayed our man. That is another group. That is another group. Then there's now the random opposition that is still there of Kina Kalonzo, who are still purposing to run for presidency. These are almost 5 opponents roaming around the president. You understand? So you ask yourself, will you go ahead again now and pick on civil servants who, Fred, the people you can't fight are the people that work for you. They're the civil servants. Because whatever order you give, they're the people who go to implement them. That's why you had situations where our presidents would face a coup situation. And the moment the late President Mugabe of Zimbabwe, the moment that he knew it's truly over was when he saw on TV and saw the military on the streets with the public. He knew it is over. Because it is those military, including General Chiwenga, who was the chief of defense forces, who was his ally from the struggle when they were in the bush, until they formed the government, and with the current president, I keep forgetting his name, the president of Zimbabwe being the minister of interior, and then General Chiwenga being the military arm. Those were his two personal people that they were able to run that country for the many years he did. So the moment he fell out with the crocodile, as they used to call him, who was now the current president, and then he saw General Chiwenga on the street, he knew it is over. Because those are the people you use. They are within the institution. So when now you are in a situation where now you are targeting some of the members within the public service, Fred, there's over 300,000 public servants. The moment they feel also coerced, then there's another layer of enemies that you're creating over and above the many others. It will be very difficult to be able to surpass them. I doubt if this president is having, either is just being ignorant, or sometimes power gets into your head and then we assume some very minor things. Those civil servants have not in any way been through any disciplinary process to say that they didn't perform their jobs.
Yes.
They are public servants and they are not employees of William Ruto.
Yes.
Just like the judiciary. None of the judiciary officials from the Chief Justice to the sweeper is an employee of William Ruto. So he found them there.
Yes.
My father worked for KRA for 35 years. He saw 4 presidents go because he was a public servant. Until the day he retired, the president came and go because he was a public servant.
Amazingly, even the deputy president, when he took over,
Yes.
he didn't sack everybody else
Yeah.
who was serving under deputy president, then deputy president William Ruto.
Yes.
So it's the same people, but now they're rendered jobless.
Yeah.
While creating employment. You know, that's the sarcasm.
Fred,
Now,
you wouldn't want to have all those opponents at the same time.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's a grievous mistake that he's doing, and sometimes when you become a juggernaut, you cannot take any advice from anyone. And I believe this is why we have this kind of mistake. Maybe like the calculations, like I have Raila Odinga on my side, so definitely I can do anything. I have the muscle in Parliament, without foreseeing that even them, they could use their sober minds and decide to make correct decisions without looking at what maybe could be dropping in the wallet, if there was any. But I believe this is politics in Kenya. If there was, and there was. So if it's not there, definitely maybe they could make sober decisions. And I'm requesting the parliamentarians for the sake of Kenyans that we should actually, all of us, fight towards propagating elements of peace and unity amongst every Kenyan. This is what we should be working to actually increase and improve on. So when you see this kind of a thing happening here, much as my brother here would talk about whipping the emotions of the people of Mount Kenya, it is within the constitution which he actually professes that at the preamble, we, the people of Kenya, proud of our ethnic, underline that, cultural and religious diversity, and determined, regardless of the existence of the ethnic formations, we should be determined to ensure that we live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation. That is what I'm trying to explain, that belonging to a certain community, whipping the emotions of a certain community, is because their relationship with you did not start here, that you're being elected as the chief secretary. They started the relationship with Musalia Mudavadi when he was a young man, young boy actually.
Very true.
That's when he had Musalia Mudavadi, and they became kind of connected.
Yes.
And you have grown with it. Now, even coming to that position, you cannot, unless we act hypocrites of the highest order, we cannot detach yourself with the ethnic community that you have come from. What you only need to do is to be determined to embrace Ngaira from whatever cultural background, religious background, traditional background. Those are the things I'm supposed to embrace him with and say, this, let's agree, hii usilete hapa, hii nisikulete hapa. Then we continue moving as Kenyans. Remember, before the 2010 constitution, Kenyans cohabited so well. Before the 2007 elections, when this thing was actually began to be drummed up in 2006 after the fall of that referendum, that's the time we started doing wrong politics. And that is when we started propagating the negative ethnicity. So we should begin now to embrace the positive ethnicity and surge on and move on as a country. But when you hear a speech like the one the president gave yesterday, and cautioning that it's like criminalizing that when you uphold or talk about a certain group or organization could have fought for independence, you cannot erase Mau Mau even if you want. You cannot erase the Kikuyu Central Association 1922 when they were agitating for land. By that time, communities maybe in Western were not fighting for land. You get the point? By the time Mau Mau were going into the forest in 1949, let alone the Englishman's history of starting our history from the state of emergency. In 1949, they parted ways. Kenyatta went this way. You go do your discussions. While the Mau Mau said, we never negotiated to release our land to them. They took it by force. We get it back by force. So when we get to this, we cannot erase history. Yes. It will remain, whether it has been spoken by the man in the highest office or the villager.
Yeah, we are past time. In 3 seconds, maybe. What do you see when it goes to Parliament, to the courts?
With the courts, and having understood what a conservatory order is all about, it is a 360 scope. It will consider the evidences presented, and which means it will not ignore the call-up of the signees of the 2 affidavits who the Senate tried to shield not to appear. You get the point? Because they're supposed to appear before the deputy president gives his statement, his testimony, before he was actually cross-examined. So which means once they get to that court, everything will be laid on the table, and whatever was missing at the Senate, even the timelines and everything, and the uncertainty.
Do you see the deputy president getting justice there?
He actually has a lifeline.
If
the court is not threatened, Yes. If the court is not threatened, that is threatening the judges,
he has
or bribe the judges.
Yes.
He has a lifeline.
Okay, Gaira.
You know, it's an opportunity now for the Kenyan judiciary to once again prove itself. Any Kenyan who has witnessed the process, that this impeachment process, which is a legal process that is acceptable within the Constitution, but just the manner and style in which this process has been rushed, and how they're even trying to push in a quick DP nominee without the legal processes, you realize that the DP becomes part of the presidency and the role of IBC in that process. And in a situation where we don't even have the chairman of IBC, who is the returning officer of the presidency, who could then clear them. And the way they did it, clearly in terms of procedure. Personally, I don't care about Gachagua and wherever he goes with his votes. But as a Kenyan, he has a right to be heard, because he's not the last deputy president.
Yes.
In future, Fred, I could be deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. And I'd want to go through a similar precedent.
Yeah.
So I think it's an opportunity for the judiciary now to actually sit in and go through the process and make some landmark decisions for the benefit of the Kenyans in the years to come. Because nobody in the judiciary is an employee of William Ruto. None of them owes this government or any other future president as an individual any allegiance. Just do your job and follow the Constitution.
Well said, my brother.
Yeah. Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. Well, with that, we got to bring the curtains down on the issue. Let's see how this is going to play out in the course of this week when the deputy president goes before the High Court. How is it going to play? It's unfortunate that some of my friends lost their job or have been sent on compulsory leave, but I know that justice is going to be served in this country. And let's remember, it's not for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua or for William Ruto. We are setting precedents and structures that our children, so that by the time our children come into the play, they will find areas, grounds that we've prepared for them to, have a very just and a fair system that will help them achieve the dreams of this country. So with that, do have yourself a lovely morning.
Thank you very much.